Hello, it's Laura from the Slow Dog Movement. This is a Dogs Pays podcast, and I'm joining you and joining Jonas from Canada. Jonas Thulin is joining me today. We're all joining each other. I just told him I don't have a script. It's fairly obvious now. Jonas is in Altea, Spain, and Jonas Thulin is a former co-director of the Slow Dog Movement. He is an entity unto himself, and he's my friend. We're here today, finally, after me hounding him for months and then refusing to phone him. We've made a date. We're here in front of the camera, and hello, Jonas.
Hello, Laura. It's about bleeding time.
Yeah, it is. Jonas first contacted me in like 2020. He would just ring me up and tell me jokes out of the blue. I didn't know who the hell he was. And then I started the Slow Dog Movement. I started the Slow Dog Movement, and one day I said, this thing's kind of taking off. Do you want to help me? He's like, no.
Yeah.
But thank goodness you did. Thank you.
We had a couple of years. A couple of good years. Yeah.
We did. So Jonas is in Spain, and he's I had to write this down because it's rather a long title. He's a canine emotional health well-being advisor, which is a lot nicer than saying a dog trainer.
I'm advising people to lead a better life and lead a better life together with their dogs. That's what it is. When I started this kind of work, what it was is we hear it often as well, that we do it because we want to help the dogs. But it's not that, really. What I'm trying to do is help the unit, the family unit, obviously, but it's not just helping the dog, it's helping the people as well, the humans, to be able to have a healthy relationship with their dog, and vice versa, obviously. So I'm trying to make it better for everyone. So if that's sort of why I wanted to say that I'm an advisor, and then obviously, yes, I'm working on the emotional health and the well-being of the dog. Yes, because what I do believe is that if you want to have a healthy relationship with the dog, you can sort of sort out your own emotional health and well-being, or you have the measures and ways to do that, sort that out on your own, and maybe you need help to do that as well, but then you get someone else to help you with that. But to help you with the dog, that's where I come in, and I teach people how to read the dog and how to communicate with the dog and how to have a healthy relationship with the dog. And I don't, because what I do, the dog trainer, that's one thing about it, is that the first word is putting too much emphasis on the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is that I do definitely not do any training whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So that is not a word that I could use either, to be honest. Here in Spain, we've got a word that's just like dog educator, or talking about dog education. But I'm not really doing that either. You know, I'm not educating the dog. There could be moments when I go in and you see that you got a dog that's, say, it's got a problem to manage frustration, for an example.
Mm-hmm.
But that is, then you could obviously go in and do some exercises with the dog to help them to manage better frustration and things like that. But doing like training the dog to do certain things, no, I'm not doing that at all. I've actually come to a point with my work and the way I look at the dog that I actually think that kind of dog training is not just obsolete. I think that in some cases, not always, don't get me wrong, but in some cases it can actually damage the relationship we have with the dog, which means that I try to avoid it. But that could be I mean, if you want to do agility with your dog, I'm not saying that you can't do it. What I'm saying is that, yeah, okay, the same way that you can take your son to play football, or like you can go and train, play tennis or whatever it is. But if you come in and put your expectations onto what your son or daughter should do with a tennis racket, then it gets toxic.
I agree.
So the same thing when you take your dog to do whatever kind of activity you do, you have to look at it from the dog's perspective and let it be the dog that decides if he wants to do it or not, or make it, as long as you like, keep it on a fun basis. Whenever you put your expectations onto the dog, what the dog should be able to do and what the dog should accomplish and whatever, then it gets toxic. So there's a little thin red line there. As long as you do it for you having fun and we are playing here and we're having a great time together, fine, okay, that's no problem for me. But then there's another thing. So you got to look at the physical abilities and make sure that he doesn't hurt himself and all that. As long as you got all that in mind, fine, okay, problem. No. I've got a colleague around the corner from here that I actually do quite a lot. Lately, not that much, but we are in contact, and I might send something to her and she might send something to me. She's doing classes of what she calls happy agility. And I think that's quite funny, to be honest. There's no pressure whatsoever. And if the dog, instead of going from this obstacle to the one on the right that he should have done, he wants to go to the left instead. Well, that's fine. As long as we're having fun here, there's no real rules. And, and it's.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm back.
Thank you. I didn't think you'd have to go so far, but I'm really happy that everyone got to see that you're wearing a Slow Dog Movement t-shirt.
Aha, that was the reason. Okay.
Yeah, it was a trick. Listen, I didn't think we were going to talk about agility, and I'd have to see it, but you know how the Slow Dog Movement feels about agility. But if it's that kind that they can just, like a kind of enrichment place where the dog can just decide where to go, it's not some kind of adrenaline fueled, crazed. Because when I think of agility, I think of crazed dogs, like totally high on adrenaline and being pushed around a course. So this is just a place where a dog can choose where to go. Is that what it looks like?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
But then, I mean, seriously, what it is that I put a post up years ago where my dogs were up in the mountains and they were running around in the forest, okay? And what it was that there was a tree that had fallen down because of the storm that we had, and there was like these terraces in the forest that's overgrown. Okay, you can tell that hundreds of years ago they was probably doing some sort of agriculture up there. But anyway,
Cool.
And so the dog, you had my Gandul and my Nuyana. I was filming them, and they were like coming downhill, and they had to jump this terrace, and then they had to sort out the tree and what it was, or the trunk that was there, and what it was that Gandul jumped over it but Nuyana went underneath, okay, and then they came around and I had to sort out the bush or shrubbery, and I had to run around that and things like that. So I filmed that, and all of a sudden I said, just like that, because it just came to me, and I said, well, here I am with my dogs in the world's biggest agility course. And I got a little bit of feedback over that, because what it is, but it's basically the same thing, to be honest, because I've got one dog as well, my Pocho. He can be extremely anxious at some times, and what it is that if I take him out in the outback, in the forest or up in the mountains or whatever, and get out of the car, there can be so much scent that he gets overwhelmed, and he's like, just whoa, he's losing it emotionally, and I've got to be aware of that as well. So it's not just an agility course or doing agility or throwing frisbees or whatever. What you have to realize is that it could be letting him off leash when he's not prepared for it. That could be too much as well, So what it is, we have to be able to read the dog and see that he's actually handling this in a way that is healthy for it. Okay.
I
So,
remember the video you did about him. There was a video
slowing him down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he sometimes he needs help to slow down. Which is something I tell more or less everyone as well with their dog, that the dog doesn't need our help to get going.
Yeah, no.
He most probably needs help to come back down again.
Definitely.
You
Well,
know?
so do we. I neglected to mention, because we got straight into it, that Jonas he does work with people and dogs, but he also has a world famous podcast. Pongamos. No, now I'm see if I can say it. I don't have it written down. Pongamos, hablamos con perros. No, is that right? Say it again. Say it.
Pongamos que hablo de perros.
Ah, right. I said it wrong. Thank you.
Translated, that would be suppose I'm talking about dogs.
Right. And I'll put links to all of this in, on the podcast, so you don't have to write things down.
That is one. It's in Spanish, 100% Spanish. For now, I've got a little bit of a plan to make some episodes in English, just because I want to. But yeah, in the whole, it's listened to in 43 countries. So yeah,
Spanish-speaking countries.
Well, if there are people I think there's some listeners in Canada. There's definitely some people in the United States that's listening to. I've got listeners in but it could be Spanish-speaking people in different countries. I've got in Holland and Germany and in the UK, and so not France.
No. Okay. Just pull them out today. The reason that I've asked you to come on the podcast for this particular day is because Jonas is one of the founding members of ANPECEC, and you can please tell our audience what that stands for in Spanish.
ANPECEC, well, if I read it out in Spanish, it means Asociación Nacional de Profesionales y Educadores Caninos desde la Empatía y la Cooperación. Now, that in English would be the National Association, that is in Spain, for professionals and canine trainers or canine educators working from empathy and cooperation.
Thank you.
That is basically what it is. Yes.
Thank you. And so I'm an amigo or the Slow Dog Movement's an amigo, a friend of ANPECEC. So far, we haven't done anything wrong to be kicked out. And I really should practice my Spanish so I can understand more. Sometimes I drop in on the meetings and go, oh, I understood about 5 words. Because they speak quite quickly and they do talk about technical things. And so, yeah, it's for Spanish. It's for Spain, and
it's a national, but you can obviously, I mean, even like you, and there are others in different countries that are friends with us, so yeah, but it's a national.
And when Jonas and Santos began that organization, you joked that you had about 7 pages of ethics, right? So
no, but that is not a joke. The code of ethics is an extensive document, and then we've got a protocol on like how to behave and how to work. Okay, which is called MIME, and that is mínima invasión y máxima empatía, which means minimal invasion and maximum empathy. That means that we try to invade the dog, obviously, but people think that it's only the dog. But we're talking the mime is actually something that we put on to not just the way we work with the dog, but it's the way we work with the humans, the clients, and it's the way that we then treat colleagues and working partners and things like that. Like, for an example, one thing that we don't like to see is if someone is insulting someone else on social media and things like that. If you're a member of ANPECEC, you should not do that. That's not the way we act. So we've got that code of ethics that is telling like that, and the meme that is the meme is more like some sort of a distinction that like a ANPECEC professional uses to tell them this is the way I work and this is sort of a certification that I do. This could be a vet clinic or whatever that puts up a sticker saying I follow the meme, or here we follow the meme. And that is a distinction that we are saying, that here we do not invade the dog, for an example, more than the situation is. It's more or less say that you never use more force than the situation requires. Okay, and obviously, but that means that we always try to make it as easy as possible. There are situations where you have to maybe use a little more force than in other situations and things like that. Here in Spain, I mean, you got that in the US and Canada as well, where you got like shelters and shelter dogs, and I, for an example, have collaborate with different shelters here, and they can call me when they've got a dog that's got like a certain aggressive behavior towards the people that's working with him or her. And they call me in to do an evaluation of the dog in the situation, what they can do and how to handle it and things like that. And to be able to evaluate the dog, I might have to take him out of the shelter, because that is obviously a toxic place to be in, and there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of other dogs that's barking around, and it's a highly stimulated area, and I have to take him out of there. And to do so, I might have to say, for an example, I would usually recommend a harness to when you're walking the dog. Now, if I have to walk that dog out of there, I might get my arms bitten off trying to put the harness on it. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just have to look at the situation we're in and like that. And then, but you still, so if I need to, say, use not a choke collar, but a sort of a holding collar and a holding device to be able to manage the dog out of there and put him into a more empathetic area, if you want to put it that. I mean, physical. You try to make that as short as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so that the time that you are not empathetic or nice to the dog, if you want to call it that, that is as short as possible. So yeah, all the time we are trying to make it. But then when we're talking like a treatment or things like that, when we go in and rehabilitating a dog, then you look at the steps to go through, and you have to evaluate. Have we, for an example, where the dog is, does he feel safe there? That is what I would say would be the first thing to look at. Is he being well fed? Has he got enough sleep and things like that? You know, you can't really work on anything if the dog is afraid where he is. You know, and I'm here trying to tell the humans that no, here we're going to do this and that, but it turns out that the dog is dead scared in the place he is and the environment he is in at the moment. So there's no connection whatsoever, because the first thing that he's thinking of is I got to get out of this place.
Yeah.
So there is like the way you look at it that way. You've got a sort of a little bit, even we are a little bit more empathetic, but you got the Lima from the IAACB. Okay, they've got a protocol that's called Lima, and it's sort of the same thing, but ours is, I would say, is taking it one step further. So yeah, and the code of ethics, yes, that took us three, between four people. It was just four of us, and even so, it took us 3 months and a bit to be able to put down the code of ethics, because we were discussing it so much, and we got a little bit of criticism in the beginning saying we should have been more inclusive, letting more people into that process. And we said, well, it took us nearly 3.5 months to do it between 4. If we'd been 5, it would have taken us 6 months. It would have been 6, you know. And if it'd been 10 people, we would still be discussing it. It's that was not an easy process.
And what was important about nailing down those ethics for ANPECEC and yourselves?
Because it's not enough. To me, it was just that it's not enough just saying that that you can't use aversive tools towards the dog. Okay, what I was just explaining, that like moving a dog from one place to another, when you got a dog that is going to eat you if he gets a chance to do it, obviously you're going to have to use some aversive tools to be able to do that. Fine, okay, but in a normal situation, so that it's I think it's extremely important to make clear that it's not just saying that we do not use aversive tools. You have to be able to make people understand what it means to use aversive tools, for an example. Now, I've come to a point in my position as well where I've saying that we under the code of ethics is sort of not just talking about aversive methods. We're actually talking about positive methods, in the sense that, well, you know that I threw out this what's it called? Sorry, like a question saying if is it ethically acceptable for me to condition a dog to do something that would be good for me, but it's not natural for the dog. And I said, omitting the method. And people were a bit upset about that, because you can't omit the method. Because there's a difference, like if you're using an e-collar or if you're using treats. I said, yeah, okay, fine. But that is not what the question is about. And there were people that was having a real hard time to get around that one, saying, I can't answer it in that sense, because I work force-free. I said, yeah, okay. But working force-free, you still might be able, you could condition the dog to do something that would be okay for you, but it's not natural for the dog. Saying, make the dog do a handstand towards a wall, for an example. You know, and make the dog walk on his front legs with his hind up in the air. You know, we've seen that kind of a trick done many times with dogs. Now, is that okay? Is that ethically okay to do that? Even if I'm working force-free. You know, I'm only sort of using positive reinforcement, which is another debate. You can't do that. It's completely impossible. Now you say, what? Excuse me, I'm not punishing my dog ever. I said, yes, you are. But that is another question. You know, we can't be so, short-minded that we think that it just because I'm putting a piece of sausage in front of my dog, you can't do no harm. Yes, you can. And that was another part that was extremely important to us to be able to put out and make people understand what we're talking about. So there was quite a lot of debate on that, and how much, and so is it then a bad thing to use treats? Well, I can tell you that I basically do not use treats at all. And with my own dogs, I haven't used treats. I tried to with Gandul, but that was a big turning point for me. And that's nearly 10 years ago now. And we're talking about a Spanish greyhound, and he was four months old, sort of, when I got him. And what it was is I started off on sausageology with a dog, you know, and I had my pouch filled up with pieces of sausages, and I was going to train my dog, and he looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" You know, he said, I have absolutely, out here, I've got no interest in that at all. So he just kept going on what he was doing, and he was sniffing around here, and he was exploring, and he was doing this and that. And I could have forced him to like be interested in my pieces of sausages, but instead of that, I started thinking and saying, okay, what do I have to do to get his attention? What do I have to do to make me interesting? What do I have to do to make him be intrinsically motivated to do what I want him to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge turning point for me. And that
Intrinsic
was,
reward.
yeah. And I you know, Laura, that my eldest son has autism, and what it is that with that I learned a lot as well. And this is, I mean, the late 90s when we started like working with him, when we got to know that we got the diagnosis and things like that for him. And the way that we worked with him, I'm translating that on the way that I'm working with the dogs. I see a lot of dogs. On my podcast, I had an episode just a few back, which was actually where we're talking psychopathy and sociopathies and other problems that you can have. Autism, you have hyper activity, and you've got like lack of that. What is it called in English? Say ADHD.
ADHD. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering now, as you're saying that, it made me wonder, because in humans, well, there's a theory that all of the spectrum, or a lot of it, can be, especially ADHD, can be caused by gut health, which we've had a slight conversation online about, you and I, just to messenger back and forth. So it is interesting that the gut can make us feel worse, can make us depressed, can, so I don't know if you've ever seen huge changes with dogs with diet,
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. We have this thing now. I live in a multi-dog household, okay? And we've got 2 old Chihuahuas. One of them, he's still got his mouth in because he's over 2 kilos. But then we've got a female that is 1,800 grams, which means she's not even getting up to 2 kilos in weight. And
Wow.
and she's 14 years old, and that means that now she's lost all her teeth. And another thing with that is that the lower gum, it has like lost, it's basically cartilage, and so that's lost its purpose since there's no teeth there. So we had to like help her feeding her and stuff like that, and she's really picky with her food. So my wife was just saying now she wouldn't have the food she was serving her now midday, just before I sat down with you. So she said, so I went up and I could see there was like some leftovers from yesterday evening, and so she like made that into a little small pieces, and she mixed that up with what she'd served to her before, and that was okay. Then this I like, they've got taste.
They do.
They've got taste. I mean, and just having the we're getting into a topic here that's huge. You know that.
Yeah, no, we're not going to go to there. But I have a similar older dog who's losing her teeth, and she prefers cooked food now. I mean, she'll eat raw food, but as they get older, I think it's harder. A holistic vet once told me, when we had our Westie, who was almost 17, we'd fed her raw her whole life, hence living to be almost 17, I think. And minimum, I mean, in terms of allopathic medicine, I steer clear of it if I can with my dogs and myself, unless it's necessary. So kind of a mime vet allopathic medicine stance. But this vet told me that dogs, when they're older, they have a hard time. Their gut and everything has a hard time metabolizing the raw, but I don't know if that's true or not. And our little Jack Russell, Izzy, loves the cooked food. She likes the flavor. So bless them. Let them choose. I asked you about mime, and I didn't know. I was calling it mime. So
no, but I mean in English it's mime. Yeah, it is. You know, mime, if you look at it that way, in Spanish, mime means caring for, like,
Wow.
sort of. Well, it's mimar, it's the verb caring, and it's mimar,
Huh?
So, yeah,
Mimar.
yeah,
Is it? Yeah,
yeah,
Mimar.
mimar.
I asked you about it because so I was heavily influenced by yourself and Santos when we were in the slow dog movement together.
Mm.
It was like a huge education for me. I had not, I mean, I don't use treats with my dogs, and I basically stopped before I started the slow dog movement. I was taught a little bit that way with Turid. We did the smacking sound. It's all classic conditioning. I didn't know that when I was learning it, and using treats, and then tapering off using treats and not using them at all. So I do treat searches with my dogs, but I don't do that. So when I was working with you guys, you just blew my mind away. Just like, wow, this is so cool. I love this. Well, I just loved having this realization that it's so much easier, like the slow dog movement is, to have this relationship with your dog, and to have this respect, and to have minimum intervention and maximum empathy. It's just how we want to be with our human loved ones, So it's no control. It's what you strive for as a human, I would think.
What it is, to be honest, Laura, what it is all about, and you know that as well, because we actually did that on the slow dog movement. I mean, the circle of trust that I talk about. And what that is basically just talking about how do we construct a relationship with the dog. Because that's what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about building up a relationship with the dog. But it's basically the same bleeding way that you do with any relationship. And that's just the way it should be, that you have a mutual trust and respect, so, and that is the basis for it all. And once you realize that, then yeah, and then you realize that now we know things that we've sort of suspected, but thanks to Gregory Burns and all his brain scans that he's doing on dogs. Okay, now he is using treats to train the dogs to stay in the tube. Okay, yeah,
that's the irony of it. I mean, actually, I have to say, I saw that on the members, ANPECEC members Facebook page, and I was like, whoa, that's something that we could talk about with our Patreon group, because we have a science thing that we're talking about, and we meet meet online. And I took it and I ran with it, I have to confess.
No, and it wasn't mine, it wasn't ours, you know what I mean? So I stole it from somewhere else.
But what
it is that does, what his work has done is that what we was like speculating about, that say, oh yeah, we know the dogs love us, but did we really know that? No, we didn't really know that. But we suspected it. But now, thanks to Gregory Burns, we know that is the case. We know that the dog feels love. We know that the dog can be jealous. We know that the dog, and all that comes down to that the emotional states. I like to talk about emotional states, not emotions, when we're talking about it. But emotional states in the dog world is actually the same as in ours. So and it makes sense because, and that's not just the dog. It turns out that the mammal brain, the mammalian brain, it's got the same. It's built the same way, even if we're talking about a rat, or if we're talking about a dog, or if we're talking about an elephant, or we're talking a dolphin or a human. They're built the same way, and they've got the same neurological pathways. They've got the same, we all got hypothalamus. We all got the thalamus. We all got the frontal cortex, and we all got, it's all there. And they all have the same function. And that is where I came in when we're talking about ADHD and autism, things like that, because I said many times I look at the dog and say, well, you've got can't handle any, just a small little bit of frustration, and the dog goes ape. You know, it starts running around in circles and going, ah, 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 you know. You look at it and say, that dog has got autism. Now, can a dog have autism? Yes, of course he can. Most 100% definite. This is my opinion. I haven't got no scientific proof for it, but I'm just saying, why not?
Yeah.
You can't exclude it. And especially when we're talking about like hyperactivity and ADHD. No, I can't get the dog's attention. He can't concentrate. Yeah, duh, you know.
Does he go to sleep when you give him coffee? Then for sure he has ADHD. That's apparently a test for humans. I didn't know that, but what about dogs that have PTSD?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. No, to me, no question about it. Oh yeah,
that's what Peppy has.
Yeah. and there, when I was like working with my son, and like they taught us how to like that, there was a sort of a protocol that it's called low arousal approach, which is basically that when you got a crisis situation, what you do is you don't intervene. You're just there. Okay. Obviously, you make sure that the child, in this sense, but you translating that into the dog or over to the dog, doesn't hurt himself, or that he hurts third parties or things like that. But apart from that, you don't intervene. You let them go through the crisis, and you just put yourself not into the vital space or like that. You're just on the border of it. Put it that way, and you just put yourself there. You can sit down on the floor or whatever it is, and what you're doing is telling the subject that I'm here. When you're ready, I'm here. When you need me, I'm here. When you got a dog with PTSD, that's more or less the same thing I'm doing. Whenever the dog has a crisis situation, whenever the dog is going back into like and so I'm just sitting myself down and just being there. I'm not interacting with the dog basically at all. Obviously, the dog knows I'm there. You can physically sense my presence. So what I'm doing is I'm just waiting for the dog to say, "Okay, I'm ready." You know.
It's very interesting to see them go into that zone. I mean, but the biggest, I don't want to talk about Peppy too much because that's not what this is about. But at night, it would happen because so he would be going into his REM sleep, and because he was left in a basement of a house in outside Paris for up to 12 hours a day for a year without any humans or anyone. Like, poor, so horrible. So when he was on the bed,
sorry to interrupt, but the thing is, I had my Goku was in the same thing. He was in a garage in a cage for 7 months.
Yeah,
between 1 year of age and 1 year and seven months. So he had his adolescence in that state. And my Goku, I've said many times that this is another thing that you do, like dogs can't do that. Oh yeah, bloody hell he can. Sorry, but for my language. But the thing is what he I said he was a clear case of wanting to leave. Now, meaning with leave is leaving his life. Because, I mean, he couldn't kill himself physically, but what he did was he stopped eating, and in the end he stopped drinking. And I'm 100% sure that he knew what he was doing. But he couldn't take it no more. He got into such a depressed state that there was no point in living anymore. He didn't want to. You can turn around. Oh, well, okay. Was it that he didn't want to live anymore, or was it that he didn't want to suffer anymore? Okay, he didn't want to suffer anymore, but the way to not suffer anymore was to not live. So that was that. And then we had to bring him first emotionally back, and then physically, obviously. But and that was a process. And I can tell you one thing about it is that I detected pretty quickly that he was probably surrounded by flies because he was living more or less in his own feces and his own pee. urine and feces that I didn't clean up, and he was probably surrounded by loads and loads of flies because he had a fly phobia. Whenever there was a fly coming round, he just ran in and he put himself in a corner and he was shaking like a leaf. He was so afraid of flies that it was incredible. But that was obviously because he couldn't get rid of them, and whatever he was doing, so like we learned helplessness. Obviously he couldn't do anything about it, so he learned that the only way I can deal with this is cuddle up in a corner. He couldn't handle it, and that was is that PTSD? Yes, it is.
And because they're individuals, they deal with it differently.
Yeah.
So any kind of, vet from, war veteran that's a human is going to either go into the trees or do something. We're all individuals, just like the dogs. And I often have this picture, and I've said it before on a podcast, and people just don't stop to think about the fact that, say you're in some urban area and there's people walking their dogs on leash, like is all over the world. And as a human, I've got my baggage, right? That I may or may not have dealt with. And then you've got Peppy and Goku, all these dogs that have their baggage. And we're all out together walking and thinking everyone is going to be polite. And no, there's not going to be any reaction. Like, what the hell do people think? Honestly. If you could take that and animate that, that would be the most interesting. And then not even that. What about the environment? That's just the individuals. That's just and then what about all the scents and all the sounds and all the weather? I mean, bloody hell. It's an explosion, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the whole point, where it's about blood. It's about bleeding time that we realize that we can't sort these things out with a sit. We have to realize that it's so much deeper than the same as us. I mean, we all have different needs. I need for me to lead a healthy life, for me to be emotionally healthy and being stable and satisfied physically and mentally and whatever it is. I have different needs than that Laura Dobb has. So what I need to do is, that's another thing that we see on social media a lot, is that people are talking about, like, they are analyzing a video of a dog doing something. Okay. And I've got this sort of an idea that I want to do that, and I want to put my little face down in the corner of the video, and I want to point at what the dog is doing, and basically say that here I've got a dog, and that it's a very interesting video, and these people here, the dog is doing this and the dog is doing that, and he most probably wants to communicate something. He most probably wants to tell me something and like that, but I really don't know what it is he wants to communicate, and I really don't know what it is he wants to say, and I really don't know why he's doing what he's doing, and why is that? That is because I don't know the dog. That's the first one, and I don't know the environment that he's in. I don't know the family situation he's got. I don't know if he's living with other dogs. I don't know if he's living with one person or two persons. I don't know. I haven't got a clue if there's children around there. I don't. So the only thing I really can say about what this dog is doing here is telling myself to shut up. Because I just can't. And I had a person rang me up because she had this dog. She was like 6 years old, and there's never been a problem, and she had a free walking, and there was no problem. And all of a sudden she crossed this other dog that she'd never seen before, and there was nothing really weird, nothing strange happening, sort of, but all of a sudden it was a Spanish farm dog, which is sort of a ratting dog, if you want to call it that. So it's probably a little bit of terrier in it, but but it's actually a Spanish breed. Say something 5-6 kilos, between mid and small, but like a sort of a big Jack Russell, I would say. But anyway, And all of a sudden, this female 6-year-old stormed off and just went berserk on this other dog, and actually bit the other dog, and actually had to go to the vets with the other dog. And seriously.
Yeah.
So this woman, she rang me up and she said that this never ever happened before. She's never had a problem with other dogs ever. She's never why did this happen? I said, I haven't got a clue. I don't know. And she said, well, you're supposed to know. I said, yeah, right. That's why I'm ringing you. You're supposed to tell me. I said, yeah, okay. But the thing is, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know your dog. I don't know the situation. I don't know anything about it. I said, well, will it happen again? And I said, will it rain tomorrow? I said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, here where we live, probably not. But can I 100% say, no, tomorrow it's not going to rain? No, I can't do that. There is still a slight possibility that it might be raining tomorrow. Very, very slight. But anyway, I can't 100% be sure of it. And what it is about that is that when we're talking about dog behaviors and things like that, I just can't, because there's too many variables, and there's too many things that is in this equation that I just can't say anything about it. Unless,
you're essentially a detective.
yeah,
when you
I need to know the dog. I need to know the people. I need to know the environment. I need to know quite a lot of things. What I can do is I can generally speaking and say, okay, from now on, what you should do, you should observe your dog, and you should look at this and you should look at that. And then you go back home and see, like, you can take a notebook and start noting things. Whenever you see your dog being alert or whatever, what was that made your dog alert? What is it like? And then you can put a value to all these things that get you, like, triggers your dog. Like the garbage truck passed and the dog runs up to the window, starts barking. How much is that? Well, that's a 9 to like a 1 to 10 scale, right? There was a woman that walked past talking on the phone, and the dog reacted to it lifting his ear. Okay, well, that means a 2. Okay, so then you took that, and then maybe you can reduce the value of these over the day, and then we have a little stress reduction. Okay, we can do that, and we can do this and that. And when you walk in your dog, you like handle it and make sure that the dog has got time to process the environment he's in. So we just don't just storm off walking the dog on a leash and the dog is just following you. So it's like, okay, dear me, I'm going into a place I don't know where it is, and all these things. And one thing, just a little tip, more or less to everyone, because we all make the same mistake. And that is that when we walk the dog, we start walking the dog. And why do we walk the dog? It's like, why do you take your dog for a walk? Because the dog has to go for a walk. Okay, it's not me that has to go for a walk and the dog follows me. Well, that could happen once in a while, but usually it is because the dog needs to go out for a walk. That we've all got that 100% clear until we close the door behind us. After that very moment, we forgot completely that we're out here because of the dog or for the dog. Yeah. And now we have to do this walk, and the dog has to follow me during this walk, and we have to do this 3, 4, or 5 kilometers long walk because the dog needs this exercise and all these crap. Sorry. But there's
that
one
is
thing.
Crap, Jonas.
Yeah. One thing about that, a little tip that I said is big. It's really big, honestly. And that is that when we go for a walk, we open the door and we walk out the door and we close the door behind us. Now the dog can't retreat to his safe place. Before you close the door behind you, make sure that the dog has had time to make sure that there's no threats around him before he goes out. Once you've closed the door behind you, the dog can't retreat to his safe haven. That is gone. That way. So that means that the dog is automatically alert. And now the only way he can do now is either run somewhere else or You got the fight or flight response. Now we took the flight away, so what is left?
Many dogs, don't they, when you walk outside? Well, we now we have the luxury, because we have an enclosure fence around where our exit is.
Yeah.
We put the leashes on out there so that we leave the door open.
Yeah.
Because one of them might not actually want to go for a walk right then, right, or
That's another
whatever.
one.
But dogs that are maybe in a city, when you shut the door, they just often do stand and look around. And if you give them the time to do that, that's a very good point. That's really a fantastic visual for people.
What I tell people usually is like, open the door, but don't walk out. Leave it open, but let the dog stay inside for a little while and make sure that, okay, even I'm safe here. Now I'm just making sure that I'll be safe to walk into. And then that's the first one. Then we leave. During the walk, we walk through different environments. And whenever we walk into a new environment, we have to make sure that the dog can, like, okay, can I actually take this step? And that is another thing that I tell people as well, that when you're out walking and then you've got a trigger where you can see your dog is a little bit stressed, or there's something that, like, he got a little bit upset about, you can see that through the language, the body language of the dog. I mean, the tail might come up and like the ears come up, or just the head is lifted, like small little signs, okay? And he handles the first one, he handles the second one, but all of a sudden he barks on the dog, and that's the third one. Okay, so now all of a sudden I've got a reactive dog. Now, when you notice the first trigger and you notice that your dog tensed a bit, okay, turn around. Walk back into the environment that the dog has handled. And he's already managed this, which means that he doesn't have to bother about that. And he can concentrate only and exclusively on managing the stressor that he just had. Okay, so you can regulate his stress from that. And then when you see the dog is relaxing back down again, then you can turn around and go back and continue on the walk that you had planned. That is something we don't do. We don't turn around and don't let the dog handle the stress situations, and we don't do that. Usually, I do.
Well, if you let your dog lead, then in the walk, which I do.
If he's used to that from the very beginning, he might turn around himself. Yes, but if he's not, he never know that he's got the option to do that. So we might have to, like, sort of train him to know that he's got the option. It's the same thing when you got dogs like launching to not to be aggressive with the other dog, but you got these girls that just saw Justin Bieber. You know what I mean?
Excitement. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Euphoria and things like that. But they emotionally, they can't handle the situation. So they just rush up to the other dog, and the other dog is going, whoa, 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 and then we might have a conflict situation. But the thing about it, that is also could be that if you start telling your dog, you have to tell them, right? No, come on, instead of going up to that dog, we turn around here, we turn around, we walk back, or we make a curve, make a little bit more space here. Now, slowly but surely, the dog learns that he's got the option to do that. So he starts doing it himself. And once he's got that in him, he might actually choose to go and say hello to the other dog that he couldn't do before, but now he can, simply because he knows that I can turn around and walk away whenever I want to.
That's true. Very true.
Whenever I am uncomfortable, I can turn around.
Yeah.
So now he's learned that. And you got the same thing here. You got a stressor. Okay, I'm a little bit stressed, so I'm going to turn around. You're absolutely right there, Laura. If they have it from the beginning, that's no problem for them. But otherwise, we have to teach them. Okay, so you turn around and you walk back. Then they might choose to do that on himself, or whatever. Another thing you see dogs often do that we don't let them do either is that there was a stressor, so I'm going to stay here and I'm going to sniff on this shrubbery for a while.
Definitely.
There's no real no other point in it. There's nothing really interesting here, not even for me, but I'm standing here sniffing on this because I need to process what just happened, blah, 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 and we don't give them the time to do that.
Or let them choose if they're afraid to be behind you, which is something that
Whoa.
happened with Ted
Whoa.
when Brett brought the 3 dogs across on the plane, and he was like, "Where the hell am I? I'm in New Jersey, for Pete's sake. Um, I'm an English dog in New Jersey. I think there's a Sting song coming on,"
Yeah.
and he was so
Whoa.
afraid that he was behind me. Whereas he was a dog that had learned to be confident over the 4 years, and be in front of me. He was now a dog behind me, and a dog beside me, and a dog showing all that. So yeah, that's just, I think that talking generally in some ways, like you are now, because we're not talking about specific dogs per se, but we've had conversations before, I think, either online, in front of people, or just as a group when we had our directors meetings, talking about dogs when they see other dogs that are confined, say in a halty, or very stressed because of their equipment. And we've had that conversation where your dogs would react to other dogs. This is information. Now, this is not where I thought this conversation would go at all, and it's fine. But this is something that I think is important for people to know. So it is good in a way to talk about, your little stories or my stories about how our dogs are, so people learn that that is a thing. Because many people don't, I'm talking outside our colleague group, but, many people don't actually realize that dogs can sense the pain or frustration or the stress hormones from across the road, or the frustration and stress of that human that's across the road, and be reacting to that. That's a thing.
You don't know because I don't think I told you about this one. But one day, my 3 dogs were out on a walk, and there was one point. There was like a road sign, the post of a road sign that was extremely interesting. Okay, they sniffed. I mean, seriously sniffed on that, and all of a sudden you got like Pocho and Gandu left it, but Goku stayed sniffing there for a while, and all of a sudden I can see him going like that with his lip. He's sniffing on a post and he's like that. And then that actually turned into a growl. So he's sniffing on a post and he starts growling.
Wow.
Now, just imagine that you keep walking, and we go back to that Spanish farm dog. She's been sniffing on a place, and then we keep walking, and that is the same way as Goku reacted to this scent that he was sniffing on, that he actually ended up growling at it. 10 minutes later, we cross a dog, and it turns to be that one. That could be a trigger that goes into an aggressive behavior for some reason, whatever it is. Okay. And we have no clue why that was. And that is another thing, what we really, really, really do have to realize as humans living with dogs, and that is that we manage and process the world and our life around us with our eyes. We use our sense of smell very, very little. My wife puts on a nice perfume or whatever it could be some days, and that is very interesting whenever that happens. But the thing is, apart from that, and when I'm cooking, I don't hardly ever follow a recipe. I sort of, but the thing about that is that I talked to Santos obviously about this, and he says, "Well, that is because you cook with your sense of smell and taste. You don't need to look at pictures. You don't need to, so you don't use your eyes when you're cooking." And I said, "Yeah, that's probably right. I know that you can put this in here and you can use that together with the other one because I know how it smells and I know, but what we have to realize is that the dog, at least he should manage and process the world around him with his sense of smell. And if he does, he is looking at the world in a way that we haven't got the slightest idea. We haven't got the slightest idea on what it is that the dog is picking up, what kind of information he's picking up, what it is, how it processes it, and we haven't got the slightest idea. We know how the nose works, and we know how the brain is processing it. Yes, okay, fine, but we haven't got the slightest idea. And I think that is extremely important for us to understand.
There may be some people that know this television program, and I haven't had a TV since 9/11, actually, since 2001. But we just started watching House, which is I don't know if you know it, Gregory House, the Hugh Laurie character. And we've started watching it from the beginning. And now I think Henry, our son, has watched it 3 times now. We're obsessed with it. And I don't even like doctors. But that guy, that character, House, he's a doctor in New Jersey, in Princeton, and in a teaching hospital for people that don't know it. It's in English, but I think it's been pirated all over the world in different languages.
Oh, yeah.
But it made me think when you were saying people don't have a clue. Well, Gregory House will often take something and taste it like urine, or go up to someone and breathe like that. Oh, ketones in the breath. Like he used his sense of smell and his senses to diagnose humans. And imagine if he can actually do that, what the poor dogs are putting up with humans, just all of our, I mean, I don't have to go in that, but they can sense our health. So maybe I was thinking about this the other day with Ted, because my health isn't brilliant. I have thyroid dysfunction that I'm trying to figure out. And, but I was wondering if he was protecting me more because he knows I'm not 100%. I don't know. And then I thought, well, that could be a funny feedback loop if I'm not aware of that. I have to let him know it's okay. What, Jonas, right now, are you super hot on right now? What are you passionate about? What do you want to, that olfaction?
Yeah. That, it's nearly become an obsession.